As the movie begins, we see B lying in the hospital bed in a coma, surrounded by her chaotic family members. Even though she's in no state to respond, B can hear all the gibberish talk that's going on. Another person lingering around her hospital room is Mary, B's social worker, who's on duty to prepare a report about B's case. For that, we see her interviewing B's relatives and close ones. Next, we see that B has no memories of any particular event that's led her to this hospital bed. Therefore, she tries to recollect her memory to discover how she ended up here. 18 years ago in California, B's parents met for the first time, fell in love instantly, and got married. And both of her parents are intellectually disabled. Derek, B's dad, was not born disabled, but ended up that way after being hit by a truck, whereas B's mom, Sharon's brain never fully developed. Soon after their wedding, Sharon becomes pregnant. Despite their parents' concern and disapproval, Derek and Sharon welcome B into their lives. Sharon's family lets them stay with them and looks after the infant B during the postpartum period. During that time, Joy, B's aunt, and her husband Ben consider taking B into their care. However, they got pregnant with twin babies, and they have their own hands full. Meanwhile, Derek realizes the need to man up and look after his family on his own. So, to get a job and settle down, he decides to move his family to Vegas near his mother Loretta. With the money borrowed from Sharon's family, Derek buys a van and sets out to start the new journey. Despite B's family living in that cramped van, they're genuinely happy. Derek gets a job to support his family, and gradually, they make it to the real house where B's finally 10. Growing up with such special parents, her childhood was a non-traditional one. She had to take care of herself and do things beyond her age. Derek wants her to learn to drive, which can be helpful in case of emergency. But for a 10-year-old B, it's not a fun thing to learn. However, to encourage her to learn, Derek gets her a pet dog named Godzilla. Next, Derek's off to play tracks, asking B to help Sharon to get ready for her job. Not a single day has passed by, and Sharon unintentionally lets the dog out. B deems the situation to be an emergency, so she gets behind the wheel trying to find the dog. Unfortunately, she crashes into a neighbor's property. The cops are called, and this is the first time she meets Mary. B tries to lie to her, but Mary catches on. Then B asks Mary to let her see Godzilla one last time to bid her farewell, as she's realized that she can't take care of her mother and the dog at the same time. After the car incident, B is sent to spend the summer with Joy. The days are far from peaceful with B's presence, although she's not a troubled kid. It's simply because she wasn't raised with the same teachings and proper etiquette and basic skills as other kids. One day she nearly drowns while attempting to swim unsupervised, but her cousin's cries for help bring Ben to her rescue. Next, Joy and Ben find out that B hasn't been taught some basic things like swimming. They discern the need for B to stay with them for the sake of her everyday life and ask for Sharon's understanding in this matter. However, Sharon's against the idea and calls the cops on them. Even though they can't take her in, they do get B into a private school, and Grandma Loretta helps Derek with the tuition fee. Years later, B grows up to be a beautiful and intelligent teenager who's juggling between work, school, and taking care of her parents. She couldn't care less about what others think about her or her family. And in the meantime, she gets herself a caring best friend, Nia. At a school event, B's determined to sell the most raffle tickets because the top seller wins a free trip to Disneyland for their senior trip. Unlike the other kids at her school, B can't easily afford the trip. She then ventures out into the streets to sell the raffle tickets, with Nia assigned to watch out for her and alert her to potential dangers. Back in the present, Mary discovers Nia apologizing to the still hospitalized B, blaming herself. Mary introduces herself and requests a conversation. Meanwhile, Nia expresses her confusion about what's occurred. When the tests reveal alcohol in B's system, Mary inquires if B drinks alcohol. In response, Nia explains that B has been against alcohol ever since her father was hit by a drunk driver. In another flashback, we're introduced to Ethan Rivers, a new handsome boy at school. Ethan's immediately attracted to B, though she seems uninterested. Nia reveals some school rumors about Ethan having survived testicular cancer as a child. This piques B's curiosity, and she asks Nia about the likelihood of Ethan attending Esther's party. Esther is one of the school's popular girls, known for spreading rumors about B's parents being mentally ill in the 6th grade, as well as making racist remarks about Nia. On the other hand, Nia's uncertain because neither of them received an invitation to Esther's party. However, B intends to gatecrash the party, believing that an invitation is unnecessary as long as they bring alcohol. B then capitalizes on her mother's naivete and persuades her to purchase the alcohol for them. As expected, Esther can't compel them to leave when they arrive with packs of beer in hand. At the party, B spots Ethan but refrains from starting a conversation. However, she garners the attention of Esther's older brother, Tyler, who attempts to flirt with her. B skillfully avoids his advances, as she's not there to entertain him. Meanwhile, Ethan displays his impressive beer-drinking prowess when challenged by another guy. Shortly after, Esther summons B and publicly humiliates her by offering her a free pass to Disneyland. Hurt by this, B retreats to the washroom where she encounters Ethan with bloody pants. Upon seeing him bleeding, B conveys her concern. Meanwhile, Ethan shares his fear that his cancer may have returned. She then accompanies him to the hospital and keeps him company until the test results are in. Fortunately, the results show no sign of his cancer returning. The doctor mentions various possibilities, from kidney stones to urinating too forcefully, which could have irritated his prostate. Before the doctor finishes the sentence, B bursts into laughter, leaving the doctor bewildered. She then explains to the doctor that Ethan had just engaged in a humorous dare by urinating on a guy's car. As they leave the hospital, Ethan requests that B keep the incident a secret. Following this episode, Ethan and B grow closer, and shortly thereafter, they proudly display their relationship without caring about the opinions of others. Now Ethan wants to spend as much time with B as possible, but she has responsibilities and work to attend to. He offers his help, but B remains steadfast in her priorities. She's determined not to appear dependent in front of anyone, even Ethan, which leads to their first minor disagreement. Later that evening, Ethan visits B's home to apologize, bringing along boxes of pizza. B's never brought anyone home when her parents are around, so she tries to send Ethan away quickly. However, when her parents see him, they warmly invite him in. Surprisingly, Ethan quickly forms a good rapport with them. At this point, B realizes for the first time that she's not embarrassed about her life. And to seal the deal, later that night, Ethan asks B to be his prom date. In the days that follow, her connection with Ethan deepens, and she's managed to save enough money for a trip to Disneyland and a prom dress. Everything is falling into place for her. One day, her teacher, Mr. Vasquez, calls her into his office to discuss her college application. Recognizing her bright potential, he encourages B to consider applying to a higher-tier college rather than a community college. B hadn't previously contemplated leaving her parents given her family situation, but Mr. Vasquez manages to spark her interest. A few days later, B's preparing to go dress shopping with Nia when Sharon wants to visit the store. B asks her father to handle the grocery shopping and heads out. Meanwhile, Derek, who's napping, pays no attention to her request. Sharon notices some money on the table and decides to venture out alone, unaware of what's about to transpire. While dress shopping, Nia becomes upset with B for not spending enough time with her. Additionally, they'd previously agreed not to attend the prom, but B's excited about it, while Nia has no date. At this point, Nia's reluctant to let B go, which sparks a heated argument between the two friends, prompting Nia to leave the store in anger. Meanwhile, some of the boys, who had seen Sharon buying alcohol for B before, requested Sharon to buy them drinks as well. Almost immediately, this gets her into trouble. Cops are called and she's being held for selling alcohol to minors. Derek also gets called, but he can't help Sharon in that situation. On the other hand, B walks back home feeling disheartened and encounters her old pet dog, Godzilla. In the past, B couldn't care for her dog, but now she can manage just fine. So B picks up her dog from another person's property and returns home. However, she soon realizes that there's no one there. In the next scene, B finds out she must spend all her money to bail her mother out. At home, she explodes in anger and breaks down into tears when she sees that her parents are not serious even in that situation. She asks her parents to pay her up, only to find out that Derek's been out of work for quite a few months. He tells B that he'd gotten a job at Lyft, and the only thing left is to fix his truck. To add fuel to her anger, B comes to know that Derek's canceled Sharon's disability check because he doesn't consider her disabled. B's had enough at this point and calls her parents retarded. Because of that, Derek can't control himself and slaps her. The next day, Mr. Vasquez calls B once more to inquire why she hasn't completed her application to UCLA. B explains that she can't leave because her parents won't be able to function without her. After leaving the room in frustration, B asks Ethan to skip school and brings her to her home. There, they share an intimate moment, and she reveals her decision not to attend UCLA. Ethan tries to convince her that it's her own perception that her parents are helpless without her. B reassures him that she can care for him if he ever falls ill, but this unintentionally touches a sensitive nerve. After his cancer recovery, he never wants to think about getting sick again, and B's words unintentionally hurt him. Unable to bear it, he walks away, signaling their breakup. On prom day, B makes amends with Nia, and they quickly reconcile. She confides in Nia about her breakup with Ethan. Despite B's decision not to attend the prom, Nia, who already has a date, contemplates skipping it as well. However, B encourages her to go and have a great time. After sending Nia off to the prom, B, overwhelmed by sadness, turns to alcohol to escape reality. She goes out to the street to sell raffle tickets, where she encounters Tyler. Tyler leads her to the back of a friend's car and attempts to make a move, trying to kiss her. However, B becomes apprehensive about their destination and tries to open the car's door. They eventually stop the car in a remote location and she exits the vehicle, feeling nauseous. When Tyler tries to pull her back into the car, B stumbles and falls, hitting her head. Subsequently, Tyler and his friends become so alarmed upon seeing her unconscious that they return her and leave her in front of the hospital. With the mystery of B's hospitalization resolved, she gradually regains consciousness and awakens, with both of her parents, her grandmothers, and her aunt at her side. Later that day, Ethan arrives at the hospital with a large bouquet. They have a heartfelt conversation and realize neither of them wants to break up. With a kiss, they reconcile. A few days later, Bee's discharged from the hospital and returns home, where everyone, especially her parents, Nia and Ethan, support her during her recovery. Then one day, Bee has a heartfelt conversation with Derek about the prospect of moving out. Derek shares his thoughts about the day when she'll move out and start her own family. Still, Bee remains concerned about her parents, so Derek assures her that they'll manage just fine, taking care of each other. A few days later, Bee finally decides to apply to her dream college with Mr. Vasquez's support. On the day of Bee's graduation, Peg and Loretta open their hearts and resolve their differences. Everyone gathers to congratulate her and share a meal together. Bee's parents have always been determined to live life on their terms, despite others' doubts. And this is the lesson Bee has embraced and plans to apply to her own life. On the day she moves to college, Bee hands over the car her grandfather gave to her to Derek, which he can use for his new job. With this, her parents drive her to the college for drop-off, and the movie ends.